2025 is going to be a very interesting year, but our computer's been projecting we're going into a depression in some areas, most likely in Europe, a recession in the United States into 2028. I warned at our World Economic Conference. I stood up before our clients in November. I said, look, I got to call the shots the way the computer sees it. Right? It can't be personal opinions and stuff. And I said, very nice. Everybody was celebrating. It was the weekend after Trump won. I said, but I'm sorry, it's not going to be a blissful administration for him. I mean, this is, and he's not going to be able to prevent the economic decline. We have a serious problem on a global scale. They kept interest rates down so long. And they then tell banks that they must have government debt as their reserves. All right? Because that's safe. All right? It's actually the worst debt possible. But, so the problem we have is that most people, all these Fed watchers and stuff, they're raising rates, lowering rates. That's all very nice. It's just a bunch of propaganda. All right? The Fed can only control the short-term rates, not long-term. And that's the same for all central banks. That's what quantitative easing was all about. They were buying in the long-term bonds, the 30-year bonds, to try and reduce the supply, to influence, to bring down long-term rates, because they cannot do it directly. All right? And everybody's, the Fed's creating money, this, that. They're missing the entire point of this problem. What's happening is that as you beat all the war drums in Europe, interest rates go up with war. And our computer warns, this is World War III and Europe will lose this time. All right. But that aside from the point, it's when you have the long-term rates going up, people are losing confidence in government. You just had the German government fail. All right, the French government. Take a look at the French, what's happened there. Corporate bonds went below in interest, below that of government. French government debt, went above that of Greece. And Greece was supposed to be the basket case. All right, people are beginning to realize the problem is government. All right, just look at it this way: the Fed can raise interest rates to try to stop inflation. It creates it. This is why the Fed is now trapped between a rock and a very hard place. All right, Keynesian economics, it's failed. You can look on our site. I had this discussion with Paul Volcker. All right, Paul, basically in 1979 came out with a speech, and it's on our site. It's called The Rediscovery of the Business Cycle. He saw the economic decline in 1974, and it showed exactly opposite of Keynesian economics. All right. He said the new economics has failed. Now, that was 1979. They still teach this nonsense in schools. All right, and as a result, you have all these analysts and government, inflation, that's the Fed's job. Well, when Keynesian economics was born, the U.S. had a balanced budget. So it made sense. You raise interest rates to stop us from spending. Today, the government's the biggest borrower in the room. They raise interest rates, and what happens? Does anybody in government suddenly say, the Fed wants us to spend less. Let's cut our spending. Never going to happen. All right? So, this whole thing is just a complete joke. The debt limit. What's the purpose? All right. It was actually created in 1917 for World War I. And then they immediately, once they get their hands on money, they hate to ever give it back. So you had the first issue, Liberty Bond, then a second one, then a third one. Then they created the Ponzi scheme. Oh, you can take those first three and swap it into the fourth. What was the fourth Liberty Bond? Oh, it was going to be gold-backed and everything else. And then what happened? 1933? They defaulted on gold. And most people don't realize it went to the Supreme Court. All right. Perry versus U.S. Chief Justice Hughes wrote the opinion. Roosevelt, what they did was unconstitutional. But guess what? The Constitution is basically just a scrap of paper, and if it goes against what they want to do, they ignore it. Although it was illegal, taking out, you sold this debt, you promised to pay in gold, all right? The purpose of the gold clause, gold is not a hedge against inflation. It was a hedge against the devaluation of the currency, which is exactly what Roosevelt did. All right. And that's why the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional.
Wow.
You sold these bonds at gold at $20.67. You then raised it to $35. You devalue the dollar and you said, screw you. Here's greenbacks instead. They lost. People who bought the government debt for the fourth Liberty loan lost up to 70% of their actual international value.
Boy.
The governments do this all the time. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, Camilla was an absolute disaster. But, you know, Trump is anti-war and, you know, so is RFK. And I had even spoken to RFK about it, and I had been to a dinner at Mar-a-Lago. So I knew Trump really was anti-war. However, whoever is advising him, and I'm not entirely sure who it is, what they are proposing is an absolute disaster. All right, this idea of tariffs. Before the income tax, the country was funded with tariffs. True. Okay. And so very simplistically, let's eliminate the income tax and go back the way it was. The problem is Marxism came into play. All right. 1912 was the first convention for the Progressive Party. All right. Led by, you know, Teddy Roosevelt. All right. So ever since then FDR put in all this stuff with Social Security and things of this nature. There's no possible way to fund all this nonsense with tariffs. All right. And we have to change the political system, actually. These people that talk about, return to a gold standard. I'm sorry, you know, that's not going to work.
Gold's still going to be good to have, right? I mean, gold's going to be good to have because people lose their trust.
Yes, you use it personally, okay? But we don't want the government to have a gold standard. They're going to come knocking on your door and say, give me all the gold in your sock drawer. You know, we don't want to go back to something like that. I mean, you might as well go back to communism in Russia as well, you know. But we are looking at a debt crisis here. The sovereign debt crisis is going to start really percolating in 25. It's probably going to reach a major crisis by 26 to 27. Why? Because, as I said, you have dictated, there are all these banks and pension funds. Throughout Europe, it depends on what country you're at, but up to 70% generally must be invested in government bonds. So if the government goes into a sovereign default, what happens? You wipe out the banking system and the pensions. It defaults when you, because we're in this Ponzi scheme, all right? They have to keep selling debt, new debt, to pay off the old. Throughout history, the city of Maine, was doing that, all right? When you can't sell the new debt, what happens? That's when the default comes. You can't pay off the old. This idea of Bitcoin and CBDCs and all, very nice, all right? But what's the reality? The internet was down for 10 days, all right? A credit card didn't work. You wanted something, it was cash only. The same thing in Canada. When Trudeau froze all the banks, told the banks to freeze all the accounts of all the truckers. They couldn't even buy food. Unless you had cash, you were dead in the water. This is why I'm saying have cash at this point in time. All right, because one bank goes down, they all tend to be interconnected. That infects another one, etc. This is why we're bailing out some of the big banks, because if they don't, if they take down, it's a ripple effect, all right, that goes through it. This is what, people have, the Fed is owned by banks, etc. Most of what was really set up at Jekyll Island has been so historically distorted, all right? It was a copy of what J.P. Morgan did in 1907. There were some banks that were in trouble. He got everybody together and he says, if we don't bail it out, they go down, they're going to come after us next. So that's what he did. He saved the banking system, making them understand if one goes down, it will create a contagion. He was correct. So at Jekyll Island, what they created, all right, and the reason that banks became the shareholders, it was because the government was not supposed to bail out the banks. It was going to be, the Fed was owned by the banks, they had to pay money into it, so if a bank went down, the Fed would bail it out, not taxpayer money. He convinced the banks to pool in their funds together to bail out the problem banks, to save the system, all right? If what they don't want is, and the reason they keep it secret, if you stand up and say, oh, well, this bank is in trouble, and that one's in trouble, and this one's in trouble, then it turns into a contagion. People are going to start saying, gee, maybe all the banks are in trouble. Maybe I better get my money out, like the ones that went down in California. Look at the board that they had. Nobody with banking experience. They were political. Oh, he was a friend of Obama. This one, you're putting on unqualified people because of a political connection. That's it. All right. They do not know the banking system, no less how even the international economy functions. All right. You have to do some things in life to see it. I've actually been on a board of a bank, had to approve loans and not loans and etc. I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I've seen it from both sides of the fence. Believe it or not, or in the sequel to The Forecaster that's coming out, when they had thrown me in contempt of court, and you had the 2007 to 2009 crisis, all right, they wouldn't, the bankers, because I have the same level of experience, if not higher, all right, so when basically the shit hits the fan, I'm the one they always end up calling in, because I'm on the opposite side of them, all right, they don't like that. They told the BOP, to make sure nobody came in to even talk to me. All right.
Who's the BOP? The Bank of
the Bureau of Prisons.
Oh, Bureau. Oh my God, Bureau. I'm sorry. They didn't let people talk to you. They wouldn't. Oh my God.
It was in 2009. You'll see that the New Yorker did a 10-page article on me. I said, "How did you get in? They don't let anybody in here. They threatened the BOP. Why can we not speak to Armstrong? We can get in to see a terrorist, but we can't see Armstrong. What's going on? We're going to write a whole expose on what you people have done." So they let them in. All right. Then Congress was actually coming to me. I was speaking to Congress from prison for the 2007-9 crisis. All right. They had them throw me in the hole to cut off my communications. A member from Congress actually sent a letter to the Bureau of Prisons to investigate who put me in the hole to cut off my communications with them, no less. All right. I mean, you can't even make up all this stuff. So suddenly they take me out. No, okay, fine. You know, I've been trying to get you out. Who? I didn't put you in there. That was the warden. I mean, it was just crazy. Absolutely crazy. You know, the bankers don't particularly care for me too much, but because they're always trying to manipulate the markets. But look, I have the experience around the world, thankful of what's going on here. I mean, there's going to be a new movie out, CBDC's The End of Money. I've appeared in that. I think it's online now, and it's just a control system. They want to eliminate cash. You eliminate cash, then what happens? You can't do a bank run. What do? You go down there and say, "Here, put all my money on a USB, please." Can't happen. All right. You get digital currency. Oh, well, sorry. You know, they can turn it off at any time. It's all control system. That's what this is all about. All right. They're losing power and they know it. Well, they are trying their hardest to create war before Trump even gets in. And I am concerned that if they can even create a false flag and then blame it on Russia, we have to understand they can declare martial law. Now, they can't prevent Trump from taking power, but they can postpone it. All right.
Wow.
Look, martial law has actually been declared over 60 times in the United States. 60 times. Pearl Harbor. After that, Hawaii went into martial law, approved by the President of the United States. All right. They shut everything down. They control the press. It's look at Zelensky. He's declared martial law. Oh, we're fighting for democracy. Yeah, right. He shut down all elections. He's a dictator and will not allow anybody to even, be elected. Yeah, look, they would like to kill him if they could. Look, the neocons are really calling the shots. It's not Biden. People have been coming out saying Biden can't even really articulate a full sentence anymore. But look, we would not allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles for the entire term Biden was in. All of a sudden, after the election, a few months, oh, okay, go ahead, wipe out Moscow if you want. See, look, it's already been admitted that Russia has captured most of the Donbass. It has taken 20% of the country. So why would you invade Russia and not defend your own country? Because Zelensky was just told to do so. Oh, if you go into Russia, maybe then he'll attack somebody in NATO and we can say he started World War III and started shooting missiles from California at Washington. Would we do nothing?
Yeah, no.
I mean, just put the shoe on the other foot. I mean, this is the neocons. They're scared to death of Trump and RFK. They don't like either because neither one of them will kowtow to their demands. They are in charge of this Biden administration. And it's a complete disaster.
Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to stay updated with more content like this, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss a video.